everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over what the Sun Belt will be looking like in the year 2030. This is going to be one of two parts. The other video will be what the Rust Belt will be looking like in 2030. Now, the Sun Belt, many states will be part of the Sun Belt, much more states than the Rust Belt is the best way to put it. So let me just put out the Sun Belt in the third-party color so you guys can take a look at what states I consider the Sun Belt, which, some of them are more safe Republican, but this is what I consider the Sun Belt. It kind of stretches across the entire southern border and southern area of the United States, going a little bit up into the Midwest, but not really. I guess the most far is Utah, Colorado, actually technically Nevada. But the Midwest consists of 178 electoral votes. Now, I'm going to already characterize the safe ones. Arkansas, all of these would be safe Republican states, but that's only 29 electoral votes, going forward, future of the Sun Belt. Now, other states that I want to characterize as safe, but I just want to talk about for a second. Utah, it is still a safe state. However, I don't really think Evan McConnell did much in regards. I think that Trump still won that state by a pretty considerable margin in 2016, and I don't really think Romney's going to be able to swing Utah much, even though he is technically a Mormon. I do think that the Mormons will continue to vote Republican, regardless of Mitt Romney's specific political position. I think that the conservative area is kind of overcomes that religious aspect or religious tie to Mitt Romney because he's Mormon, and more is in the conservative area, or more, I guess, loyal to the conservative party in the country, I guess. And then also the state of South Carolina, by 2030. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put it as a likely state. I think it could narrow up slightly, but it does still remain in the Republican category. You've seen a slight narrow up in South Carolina, like you've seen in Minnesota, but by 2030, it still will remain Republican. And that's just a slower trend than a state like Georgia or Arizona. Now, going into leaner Republican states, actually, coming by 2030, there is actually another likely state that we need to talk about. That is the state of Florida. By the year 2030, based off of current projections, the state of Florida will be a likely Republican state. If you watched my video the other day on party registration in Florida, party registration or affiliation, whatever you want to call it, the Republicans are now the dominant party in the state of Florida. They are up by 4,000 affiliated people in the state of Florida. Democrats were up only a few years ago by 250,000 affiliated people in their party. Republicans are now the dominant party in the state of Florida. This is a continued trend we saw in Miami-Dade County. We've seen it by Trump winning Florida by 3.5 points. It's a great ground game. DeSantis' popularity in the state, and Rubio's popularity in the state. Florida in the future will be a Republican state. That is pretty much set in stone in my mind. Unless, obviously things happen over time, but at this point in time, Florida is very much looking like a Republican state. Going into leaner Republican states by the year 2030, I do think that North Carolina will remain a toss-up state, and if it remains a toss-up state, usually Republicans win it by lean margins, slightly higher proportion of Republicans to Democrats in the state, so really not much to talk about there anyway. Let's hop over to safe Democrat states. Colorado will be a safe Democrat state by the year 2030. It continues to shift. Biden won it by over 13% in 2020, compared to Hillary back in 2016, which was about 8%, and then Obama even actually less in 2012. This is a continued shift to the left. Colorado will be safe. And it essentially already is safe, but I guess it's still technically likely based off of the 2020 margins, but it will be safe by 2030. Going into likely Democrat margins, it'll still be New Mexico, will still be considered a likely Democrat state. I don't think it'll be safe. I think it'll remain in the Democrats plus 10-ish category. Now let's go to lean Democrat races by the year 2030. I think that the state of, let's see, this is going to be interesting to look at. I think, I'm going to characterize the state of Georgia as a lean Democrat race. That'll be the only lean Democrat race that I characterize. It has, shifted much towards the Republicans. Stacey Abrams has played a significant part, contributing part for the Democrats in that, in registering many African Americans, Black people in the state of Georgia as Democrats, and that has led to people like Raphael Warnock winning in the state of Georgia, John Ossoff winning in the state of Georgia, and then Joe Biden flipping the state of Georgia for the first time in decades, I believe, to the Democrats. And winning that state by a narrow margin, but by a margin. I think that by 2030, I think that the trends to the left will slow down, a little bit in Georgia, but it'll still remain lean. I think that Democrats will win that race by about 2-ish points in 2030, even though 2030 will be a midterm election year. You know, you could say 2032, 2028, whatever. Now we're going into tilt Democrat races. Arizona will be a tilt Democrat race. It has continued to trend to the left. It'll still be winnable for Republicans. It is still a winnable state. It is not shifted as much as people think it has. Just because Kirsten Sinema, Mark Kelly won it by 2 points doesn't mean it's a Democrat state or even lean Democrat. It can definitely flip back. We've seen Hispanics shift more and more to the left. More to the right over the last few election cycles. Arizona, does have a significant amount of Hispanics being close to the southern border. And that trend could continue. It will continue there in Arizona. However, it still will remain a Democrat race just because of the demographic trends of people leaving like the Midwest, moving to states like Arizona, especially African Americans, Black people moving to Arizona. But it will remain a tilt state going forward in the Sun Belt. Now, let's go to tilt Republican states. Well, actually, let's see. Yeah, let's go to tilt Republican states. Or actually, I'm going to characterize Nevada and Texas both as tilt Republican states. By the year 2030, Texas will be essentially a toss-up state. It will be up for grabs, 50-50. The trend is happening. Trump won it by 5 points in 2020, 9 points in 2016. 2012, Romney won it by about 14, I think. So that's a consistent 5-point swing each election. I still think Republicans will hold on by a lean margin in 2024, maybe even a likely. But by 2028, 2032, 2030s, it will be very, very close. It'll be tilt Republican, I think. They'll still be clinging on to that. But maybe it will shift. Maybe the Republicans actually will get a more solidified, the Florida. It'll morph into something new, but it'll still remain a Republican state simply because of a lot of people migrating out of California, New York, Illinois to Texas. A lot of conservatives who are dissatisfied with people like Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom moving to Texas, which is increasing numbers of conservatives from those states, which could help them in winning elections. But the trend has continued. We will see what happens. Nevada, I think that this swing is more of a result of the economic policies at the moment under the Biden administration. A lot of people, he has a very, very low approval in Arizona, not in Arizona, in Nevada, simply because of the fact of the economic policies and the high inflation, high gas prices. Nevada runs very well in the casinos in Las Vegas, Carson City, and that's how their economy sector, frankly, functions. And a lot of people in Nevada are dissatisfied with the Democrats. I think that they're going to relate Democrat policies to that economic failure. And that'll be going forward in Nevada. So it could lead to a more narrowing up of the state and possibly even tilt to the Republicans. Anyway, this is how I see the shift of the Sun Belt going in the next, I guess, 9 years, 8 years. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if you agree or disagree with any of these calls. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are well on our way to 250 and 300. Like the video and stay tuned for more videos. This week is going to be packed with a lot of awesome videos for you guys to enjoy over your Thanksgiving break. So anyway, please enjoy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. Share it with your friends.